All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Guy Aitchison's Reinventing the Tattoo Community, where tattooers, apprentices, and collectors are encouraged to join live events, share, and inspire to create better art and tattoos together every single day. You may be beaming in from YouTube or Facebook. You could be watching us right here in the community that could be found in your App Store, Google Play, and Apple. You can search for Reinventing the Tattoo, and you will find our app. In the app, you can there's so much stuff going on there. You can find our events, you can find groups. It's just like a social media source as well, which is pretty awesome. Again, community.reinventingthetattoo.com. Our goal isn't to keep you addicted to your phone, but to easily access inspiration and awesome conversations, perfect to put on in the background while you tattoo or paint or anything like that. We have some great upcoming pro development courses available as well. Along with Monday evening subscribers only exercise that Guy Aitchison participates in every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern, along with other subscribers. Check it out as well in the app for information on how to be a part of those. We have a really cool interview with a nice academic level person of philosophy of tattooing on June 1st at 2 p.m. That'll be a fun show to catch. All of our event schedules, again, are right there in the app with new stuff coming out regularly. Weekly events just like today. Usually we have Jason Leeser here. He's here, but Ricardo is going to be leading for him. Today we have the Reinventing drawing group that happens every Sunday at 1 p.m. along with the group by Jake Meeks on Mondays at 9 a.m. We have other stuff that's happening too with our Canon. You make sure to check out that. We have a massive course and weekly exercises. So that's a lot of stuff happening too, along with the Thursday 12 p.m. Tattoo Collective podcast. Other than that, we've got some real world events that are actually starting to get scheduled, you guys, and are really excited about that. Most importantly, we've got an event October 3rd to 6th that we're webcasting shows live, and that'll be BYOB. November 12th to 14th, Brussels Tattoo Convention is coming up, which we're really pumped for. We'll be in Belgium. So Ricardo, Jason, me, myself, Gabe, Nick Baxter, Kyrie's all going to be there. We will see you there if you are in Europe. Other than that, we want to shout out our sponsors for making these events possible for free for you guys to join in. We've got DLives Pro. You can find them at dermalivespro.com. Protect your art. If you're still using cling wrap, DLives Pro is designed for the healing process to breathe. Check the videos in our app to see more about them. Raw Pigments. They are actually a new company, but not so new. They're tapping right into the source. They're acrylic-free colors. They offer gray washes, all sorts of stuff. And you can find them at rawpigments.co. And also we want to thank Donna at Inkjet Stencils, which is an amazing thing that can help save tattooers times, hands, you name it. People are able to get home to their families at night thanks to Inkjet Stencils. If you would like a sample of those, just send us a message within the app or in the sponsors section to get your hands on one of those. Also our affiliates who are pretty freaking dope. If you ask me, I've been following Jake at the Fireside Tattoo Network for some time. He's got a great YouTube channel with lots of stuff going on as well. Amy at the Apprenticeship Diaries has a lot of episodes of really inspirational stuff that can also be found, as well as ecofriendlytattoosupplies.com. If you'd like to host one of your own Reinventing events, we actually really encourage that and can handle all of the back end for you. So if you're interested, just send us an email at management@reinventingthetattoo.com. Now that I've gone through all of this fun stuff, we're totally ready to jump in. We've got a few people on the line right now that I'm going to switch over to. But first, let's check in with Ricardo. How are you doing, Ricardo?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How about you?
Yeah, it's going great so far over here. I wish I was actually with you guys, but we'll save that for November.
Absolutely. I mean, we could always plan a summer trip. Jason's on his way here right now. So it's actually what I'm doing. He asked me if I could fill in for him today, and I was eager and happy to do that for him. So
awesome. Well, we posted in the app what you're going to be doing. Do you want to quick give us a little bit of, plan for today and what you have going on?
Yeah, first of all, thank you guys for tuning in. I know a couple of you guys got a hold of us on the Reinventing the app, asking about some of the materials. I think if we do this again, what we'll try to do is kind of give you guys a little bit more of a heads up. That way the materials aren't so hard to come by. If you don't have all of them today, it's not too big of a deal. Basically, we're going to stay pretty loose. What I want to work on today is like a value drawing. I want to work on our silhouettes and shapes and how they kind of relate to each other. And so how we can start beefing up our drawing skills, our rendering skills, and find out how we can use our tone and our values in that process as well. So basically, I think a little bit ago, Ashki asked, Ashki, is that how you pronounce your name, sir? Akshi.
Sir, Akshay.
Akshay. Okay, apologies,
Yes, sir.
Akshay. Thank you.
No.
All right, you had asked about the charcoals and stuff like that, and if all you had was a pencil, I'm going to show you something real quick. Is this the kind of pencil you have?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you have a knife or something sharp?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you grab a little plate or something that you can put some of this dust in, and then you just shave it off until you build up a little
Okay,
pile
sir.
of dust on it. Yep, that's it. So if you want to do that, do you
Okay,
have
sir.
brushes and stuff like that with you too?
Yes, sir. I have this kind of a brush.
Perfect. Yeah, just shave some of that onto a little surface where you can draw with it, and we're good to go, man.
Okay, sir. Okay.
All right. So basically, let's see. I put a few different photos out on the forum for us to look at. I think I don't have everything set up yet, so you guys have to bear with me for right now. But, I basically wanted to talk about some simple shapes. As tattoo artists, I know for me as a tattoo artist, one of the things that I've always struggled with was going straight into an illustrative style, focusing mostly on the line work and things like that. And what happens is I end up getting lost in the overall composition and the overall proportions of the image that I'm looking at. And a lot of times it's because it's something that we're also used to seeing, like a face, hands, a body. You know what I mean? Those are some of the things that a lot of us try to avoid because it gets so like kind of, what's the right word? Like scary. Like you don't want to do it. So I kind of posted some photos up there for you guys, and I'll kind of go over some of them with you. Let's see here. So one of the first ones that I put up was this girl head here. And one of the things that I like about this image are all the underlying shapes that are inside of it with the simple composition. I will show you real quick what I mean by that. One second, I thought I had this thing. Bear with me, guys. So here's a pretty quick breakdown of the kind of shapes that I see in this girl's face. Okay, so these are important when we're looking at images like this, so that way we can kind of start getting away from the idea that this is an object that we can't duplicate. Here's another one. And there's a few different ways of doing that. That's one of them that I rely on pretty heavily, is just those simple shapes. Another way that we can do this, and we all know what connect the dots are. I don't know if have you guys ever done connect the dots before? Not done connect the dots before? You've never done them before?
I'm doing them daily, Ricardo.
You do them daily? Okay, cool. So,
For the kids.
all right, so here's the thing that I like to try to do too. Somebody's TV on. Let's see here. All right, here's another way to do it. Is I go in and I make these like sort of plot marks. Okay, and what I'm focusing on whenever I do this is I'm focusing on the general silhouette of the shape, just the outline, the borderline, the perimeter. What that does is I pinpoint all those sharp corners that my eye catches right away. You can literally almost connect the dots to get the same shape at this point. You just draw a line around it. I gave you another example for this other lady's head right here. I zoomed out of the photo. It was lined up a second ago. I should have just made it there, but it's pretty close. So what that does for us, it gives us our basic shape. Okay, this is important when we're going to start going into the bigger brushes with the charcoal powder. These are some of the things that we're going to focus on right away. One of the first steps. The other thing that I did, I broke down this other lady's face as well. And again, all we're doing is paying attention to these major shapes, the first ones that pop out at us. I instinctively go towards triangles because for some reason, I think it's, I don't know what it is, but every time I look at any image, I always find these intersecting lines that end up being triangles that are always in nature. They're always in a strong composition of any kind of created image. So I always try to focus on that being my first thing that I use for proportions.
Ricardo,
Yes, sir.
do you think maybe you focus on triangles because triangles are built out of diagonal lines? And diagonal lines create a sense of movement inside a piece?
That's good. That's a good point, Jason. It's very good. And that's true. That's exactly why I did it. You know, a lot of great artists like Alphonse Mucha, for example, have a lot of intersecting angles that move through the piece. Yeah. We talked about this thoroughly, didn't we? Yeah. That was a fun time when we broke down a lot of his paintings that one night when you were working on that image.
Dude, you were pointing out angles and shapes that I had no idea were even there.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, bravo.
Thank
Dude,
you, man.
opened my eyes to that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So, yeah, man. So that's what we're trying to focus on. You know, in any image like the skull. I hope you guys have the skull up that I posted on the RIT. We're going to use that as a reference today. But the reason I'm using these images first is because I want to talk about how simple things can really be. We always dive into the face, especially being the hardest thing that we do. I think it's just because we relate to seeing that so much. We use it as a point of reference for communication. And I think a lot of the times what we do with line work as tattoo artists especially is we've grown up writing letters. So that simple form of contrast, which is just a line, ends up becoming a form of communication, like literal communication instead of like an abstract thought as far as communication goes. I hope that makes sense. If not,
It does make sense.
If not, we'll just keep pretending like it does. And like I'm usually here talking to myself anyway. So, but I did break down, let me pull up the video here real fast. A time-lapse replay of one of the images that I drew, the profile of the lady. And I'll show you guys this real fast so we can kind of go over some of the things that we're going to do with our charcoal today. All right. Now you can see here how I'm making everything super angular. I hope you guys can see that. I was making it super angular. I'm not too worried about any of the detail right away. And that's primarily what we're going to focus on today is not a lot of detail, just simple shapes. So let's get started. Anybody have any questions? All right. So I have some charcoal powder here that I put on a little plate. And I have one of my flat squared edge brushes. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's pretty torn up. He's an old guy, and I've been using him for a long time. I love it. I love it because what we're going to do is we're just going to basically loosely coat the canvas here. And what this does, these little guys, all these little frayed bristles and everything like that, is like it allows there to be capture on some points of contact to the surface, and some of them get kind of skipped over, and it creates a really cool effect. And it actually helps out with the overall composition too, the overall image. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna go in and start. You guys want to dive in? We're gonna pay attention to the skull and the little sprayer bottle. And we're just gonna kind of Start coating the surface down. Real loose. I'm using newsprint. I found that that's something that lends pretty well to this process. It's almost like we're going to be doing an underpainting for an oil painting. It's basically the way that I came to discover this process. It's a lot of fun. It's real loose. And that's the other thing I forgot to mention too. Like as tattoo artists, we're so focused on this permanence. We're so focused on this like really acute stroke, this really acute, precise movement with a little amount of room for margin for error. But with this process, it's going to get us a little bit looser. I think Kira was talking about this in her Thursday night class, which is like practicing getting loose, practicing getting open, and like becoming part of this image that we're trying to create. This helps out a lot with it for me. So we just want to go kind of willy-nilly, go all crazy. I'm applying quite a bit of pressure to it too. Not really too concerned about the condition of the brush. Like I said, the more tattered it is, the better for me.
Now, Ricardo, do you use that brush for other things as well? Or is that strictly dedicated to your carbon powder and your charcoal?
That's a good question. It's just strictly dedicated for this process, and that's it.
Okay.
Thank you for asking that. Yeah, I think
if you did use it for multiple things, I was going to ask you how using it with other mediums impacted those bristles, and whether or not that had an impact on the application of your graphite powder.
Oh yeah, I think if you were to put paint thinner on it, it would definitely change the strength of the bristles and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And I think that might affect the reaction as far as like the powder, like if it's collecting on the bristles or not. You know, that's a good question, man. I usually try to set this station up and leave it aside the same way you would like a watercolor station or a painting station. It's always good to keep this in practice. You know what I mean? This method, I've gone through and I've had a separate station set up for it for a long time where I just like attack a little skull image real fast and I try to get it done within 10 minutes. And I give myself 10 minutes and the only thing that I do is whatever's finished in that time, that's it. That's all you get. And it's a really good way to stay loose. It's a really good way to like give way for that impermanence of things and like start focusing on just shapes and proportions, which is what we're going to concentrate on today, just shapes and proportions. All right, so I did print off the image, and that usually helps me out a bit. Let me see if I can. We pull up the iPad and show you guys what I'm thinking as far as the simple shapes that I see in this image that we're going to be referencing today. So let's see here. And, you know, one of the cool things about these shapes and stuff like that is like, you know, as children, we're taught some pretty simple shapes: a circle, a square, a triangle, a rectangle. And anytime you look at a kid's drawing, especially if you walk through like an elementary school or something like that, and you have all these images of houses, their houses, and they're all lined up on the walls. They all look the exact same. Everybody's using a square for the main part of the house, a triangle for the roof, a circle for the sun, and then they'll sometimes do, if they're crazy, they'll go with like a rectangle for the tree trunk and then do a few circles for like leaves and stuff like that. So it's pretty interesting to me that the further away we get from that point, from basic art knowledge, the more complex we end up making this subject matter. It's such a simple approach because we're being taught at that age the shapes that are around us that create this reality that we live in. And at some point in time, we all want to kind of convey like our voice inside of that so-called reality. So I think if we can take these images and start minimizing them from what they really are, it helps us kind of see the bigger picture a little bit easier. So what I did is when I went through, I broke this down pretty simply. And those are the shapes that I'm going to focus on. And I would literally take my brush with the charcoal powder and make those exact shapes next to each other by looking at the image. And I try to stay away from all my pencils, all my charcoal pencils off until the very end of this process. We want it to stay loose, we want it to stay soft. And we're actually even going to go in and start knocking some of this down, which I'll show you what that means a little bit in just a second. But I want to start getting some shapes on here first.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I have this kind of tracing paper that we usually use to draw some tattoo designs. Will this work, or I need something thicker than this?
Yeah,
yes,
usually, the tracing paper usually won't collect the charcoal powder or the charcoal pencils very well. Do you have like regular computer paper laying around?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have that.
If that's all you have, then I would use computer paper for sure. That's a good question, though. Yeah, that's the one thing. Like, printer paper.
I can chime in real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, sir.
If you're working on a final, so you're doing this as a draft, as an exercise. If you're planning on doing a final rendered drawing, a gallery quality final rendered high detail piece, one thing that you may want to look at using, believe it or not, is hot pressed watercolor paper at like a heavy weight, 300 GSM or more. And what you'll find is that the tooth in that is going to be able to collect all of that charcoal and all of that graphite that you'll be using on it on a much more robust and durable surface. It's really great, but I only recommend it for like final renderings just because of the price point of it.
Okay, sir.
That's a good suggestion, Jason.
Yeah, definitely. One other thing that I'll suggest as well as that is I try to hold my brushes at the very end of the tip of the brush, the handle of the brush. And I always try to stay at arm's length away from whatever it is that I'm painting or drawing. That way you can kind of get a sense of the entire scope of the proportions of the entire image. And another thing is try to work on an easel or something like that if you can next time. You want something at a 45-degree angle. That way you're not having to move your head up and down too much from the subject matter. You want to try to keep your line of sight within about a 35-degree radius or a 35-degree angle from the surface of the image to the drawing surface. So like I said, we'll work with what we have today because it was kind of like last minute that I dropped this stuff off on you guys. So let's just have fun with it. Let's not try to focus too much on like, every little detail. We're just kind of looking for the overall shapes and the overall like proportions today and the silhouette. And I'll be honest with you guys, part of the reason that it was so last minute is because I wasn't sure if I was going to do this. I can get kind of nervous sometimes. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but it's pretty funny how nervous and silly I can get about like trying to convey these ideas and everything like that. But let's just have fun, man. Let's all dive in there and open up and see what happens. You know what I mean? I think it's a cool group of us to be able to do this and everybody to chime in and point anything out or ask questions if you have them, man. No problem.
Ricardo, since you're using charcoal, is there a specific type of charcoal you recommend?
The General's charcoal powder usually works out pretty well. You can find it on Dick Blick. You can find it on Amazon probably, or any of your big box art stores should have them and stuff like that too. They usually carry the pencils pretty readily, but the charcoal that I got today is I got it from one of the box stores, and it's just this generic compressed charcoal powder. So it's pretty standard.
So it's compressed. It's not vine charcoal.
Right. It's so compressed. Yeah, it's just compressed charcoal, not vine charcoal. But like I said, if you go ahead, it throws up on us.
Difference between us.
Jason, we didn't hear you, bud.
Have you noticed a difference between using vine charcoal, right? Like those long, thin sticks of charcoal, and like the compressed blocks of charcoal? And if so, we're worse than another.
I haven't, honestly. All I've ever really used is this compressed charcoal. I've never really tried any of the other stuff, Like, to be honest with you, part of the way that I did this is because I just had some stuff laying around and I wanted to give it a go. You know what I mean? I was like, let's give it a try. Let's see what happens. But now that I'm delving more into, like, a little bit deeper into this, I think I might start seeing what that's like seeing what the changes are, seeing what the little subtleties might be. Because I think with a better product, you know what I mean, it should give you somewhat of a different effect. But you give one man a tool, they might do something entirely different than the guy that uses the same tool, right?
Fair enough.
So, no, yeah, but I've never used that stuff. Have you ever used it?
Have I? Yes. I was like
the
staple. So in my intro to drawing class, in my drawing one class in college, that's all we were allowed to use was vine charcoal, and we were allowed one stick of compressed charcoal and like a couple of different erasers just for like getting highlights and stuff. But I found the vine charcoal to be really kind of difficult to work with after a while because it was so soft and it crumbled so easily that, like, if you're trying to lay down a nice large swath of tone in a bigger area, it's hard to hold on to after a while because you grind it down and snap it down into these tiny little pieces that are almost impossible to hold on to.
Okay.
I've always found I have more control over compressed charcoal than I do with vine charcoal, but I do like vine charcoal for like blocking in general shapes. That's kind of why I asked about, if you preferred one over the other.
I see. Yeah, I can see how it could get pretty messy. Like, you try to put a mark down, especially with vine charcoals, should be more for details and stuff like that too, right?
I mean, we were supposed to use it for everything. So
yeah, okay.
I mean, big broad areas of gradients and all that stuff, like that's all we had. It's all we were allowed to use.
That's interesting. I've never taken a class like that before. I'd like to do it though and see what that's about.
You're just naturally awesome. Is that what you're
No.
trying to say?
No.
You just have this natural, amazing artistic ability. Because I'm pretty sure that's what you're trying to get at.
Well, thank you. I'll take the compliment, and then I'm just gonna go back over here. Oh man, I appreciate that. Yeah, no. The reason I use the brushes and stuff like that, and like right now I'm switching over to my smaller brush now that I have like that smooth gradient in the background. I'm starting to cut in some angles and I'm starting to cut in some little details. But the reason that I like to use the brushes and stuff like that is because I think this helps develop like a collection or like a collection of saturation with the charcoals. So it gives you like an overall like softer kind of feel to it. Like I know that you can probably accomplish the same thing with like smaller charcoal sticks and like lighter, lighter tones of the charcoal, right? So you're saying like a 2B versus a 4B or a 6B or something like that? Is that what you're saying?
Oh man, buddy.
Poor guy.
He's going through a wormhole.
Yeah. I'm actually going to get going in a minute, guys. I just wanted to tune in.
I appreciate you dropping in, Jason. Thank you so much,
problem.
man.
It's my pleasure. I'll catch up
See
with
you
you guys
soon.
a little bit later.
Be safe.
Always.
And how cool is that, dude? He's like driving down here and he like jumped in and stuff. That's so rad. So rad.
I have a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Damn.
Yeah, I know, right?
I was gonna ask if you think that there's any techniques in charcoal that can also be translated to tattooing.
Yeah.
As far as hand movements goes or anything like that?
That's a good question. I mean, not really hand movements, I wouldn't think, but I think the idea of a collection of saturation. You know, I think whenever I approach tattoos, especially larger works, larger fields of, you know, gradients or color blending, I always try to think of it the way that it's not so much of an impact. It's not so much of a solid laying down that color. It's like a smooth, soft collection of ink. And I would say that this is kind of the same process or the same idea anyway, where you're just kind of building it up from soft to darker, soft to darker. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool. How's it going, guys? What you got going on so far? Can we take a look?
Yeah. I'll show mine for now.
Okay, let's check it out. All right, that's killer. That's a
So I'm
solid
just going to
start.
block in all of the dark areas that I see in shape form, like how you were talking about. So I kind of just minimize all the layers until we get to the last little rims of light, which will be the last shapes, which I'm assuming is what you're trying to get at.
Yep. And you know what I like to do at this point too is like you have a really solid start. What I'll do is I'll take a really big brush with no charcoal on it at all, and I'll just brush over the whole thing. Yeah, and then before you start erasing anything, just start brushing over the whole thing. What that's going to do is it's the whole thing. Just brush over the whole thing, real soft. Just give it a light skim over the whole image.
Why?
Trust me. Well, because what we want to do is we want to help create some depth. And what's going to happen is we're going to use some of those values that are left over from brushing it off, and then we're going to keep building darker values on top of those soft values to kind of help create that feel of space and atmosphere.
Okay. All right, I'll do that right now. Should it be like a bit like because I have this big one and then I have like a much smaller one.
I would use the other one, the longer bristles. Yeah, because you want it to be soft. That short bristle is going to give it more of a blunt kind of feel to the surface of the paper. How about you, Akshay?
Sir, I have done this.
Okay, very cool. All right, so you got some real solid shapes there. So like with what I was telling here, what I would do is start going in with that bigger brush and brush over the whole thing. Like you don't want to erase it entirely. Yeah, you want to brush some of that off of the top surface. Yep. So
how
just
often do you do that?
Usually once I build up, that's a good question. How do I explain that? I think once I've built the drawing back up to where I can recognize all the shapes that I'm paying attention to, and I know that what I'm doing is sitting back and looking at the image, and I'm looking at the proportions, and I'm looking at the relation of the shapes to each other in its own self. And as long as everything starts to line up, and I can still see those angles that I first started out with, and it looks proportionate, then I'll knock it back down again.
Do you do that in painting as well, or is this the only time you'll do that process?
I don't really do that in painting. That with painting, especially in oils, you kind of start to approach that with other mediums rather than knocking the whole thing down. So with painting, what I would do is like build up on the lighter values or the lighter tones even. And then I would start building it up with other mediums or like more direct from the tube paint, less, what is it? Watered down.
More opaque.
More opaques, exactly. Thank you. That's the word. Ding, ding, ding.
Yep. But I'm gonna start just keep getting, should I like do mid-tones and then darks and lights, or should I go straight dark and then mid-tones lights? Like, how would you approach the layering of the value selection?
I go mid-tone almost the whole way through first.
Okay.
I go mid-tone almost the whole way through first. And you can see here, like what I did on mine, this right eye socket shouldn't be this dark. So I'm just gonna take, I don't know if you can see it. You guys need me to move that closer at all?
Just a tad.
Yes,
Let me
sir.
show you
A little bit.
Let me turn this around real quick. So I went pretty dark with this here. That was going straight with the smaller brush. And what happened is I pushed too hard with it. So I'm gonna go through with my gummy eraser and I'm just gonna start lighting some of it up. Lightening some of it up. Making it softer, basically what I'm trying to say.
And how would you go about doing teeth? I always have a tough time with teeth.
Just a shape, just a simple shape. Just do it like, here, I'll show you real quick. I would just go through and literally, I'm gonna find where my teeth are at. And if you look at the image here, on the print, you can see the curve in the teeth on the top border part here. You can see the point starting higher on the left and ending lower on the right-hand side. But if you pay attention, you can see that there's almost this triangle kind of shape in it. So all I'm gonna do is replicate that shape, that feel of it. So just gonna go through. And I'm not too worried about the highlights right now. All I'm doing is focusing on the overall shape, the overall relation of this area, this length, to where it lines up with the sockets, where it lines up with this part of the nasal cavity, and where that lines up with the bottom part of the jaw as well. So I'm taking into consideration the whole piece. But so I'm not worried about any of those highlights or anything like that right now. Don't get too distracted about that. All we're doing is looking at these just real basic elementary shapes. And then I'm gonna go through and I will knock down the whole thing again. And don't get distracted. Like whenever you see your initial lines that you put down, don't get distracted about any of that stuff. Because at another point in time, we're gonna go through and we're gonna kind of like soften it up with our gummy eraser. We're gonna put a little bit more blending into it. It's gonna cover it up. And sometimes, honestly, for me, I love seeing stuff like that in drawings. I love seeing stuff like that in renderings. It kind of gives it a little bit more of a character. Like we don't want to replicate the image exactly. We want it to be recognizable. And our own voice will start coming through in that process. Because we're always looking for style. We're always looking like, what's my style? What's my niche? And I think with this kind of a process, it helps develop that in a little bit more of a natural pace. More organic kind of feel to it. And it takes a little bit of time. But the cool part is it seems like it's really fast because you're just focusing on the shapes, and it seems fast because everybody can already recognize what it is they're looking at by just these simple shapes. So right here, I'm going to pay attention to where this mouth, the jaw, and the cheekbone line up. And what I'm doing is I'm focusing on this angled portion of the of the eye socket, the bottom part of the eye socket, you can almost see a straight line almost all the way down. And you see where it lines up with that little hole right there too. I like doing skulls. I love skulls, first of all. But I like drawing these because we're taking away that facial recognition. But you're still getting the structure of a face, and you're practicing the angles that are underlined on portrait drawings. So it's good to have a really good understanding of how the bottom layer works, that underneath layer of the face, in order to be able to draw it better at another time. Or render it better at another time.
Would this help you learn planes of the face if you were trying to study portraits?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, because with this collection of charcoal, what we're doing is we're subtly and unrecognizably paying attention to the way light hits a surface, the way light falls around curves of a plane. And that does help with facial structure for sure. There's no fine edge. There's no fine edge. There's no straight lines in organic drawing. It's all curves. It's all S curves, little angles, little subtle changes of light, little subtle changes of value. So I can already see here that this socket is in the right place, but there's a part of the bridge done missing already. So I'm just going to keep blending it together until that shape looks a little bit more recognizable to the reference that we're using. And I'll show you guys what I mean by drawing from this angle. Can you guys, is this okay to turn my camera this way?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so like I said, I like to try to sit arms. Okay. And where I stand is I barely even have to turn, I don't even have to turn my head while I'm looking at this life drawing. And that's the goal. You want to be able to be at arm's length to be able to capture the entire surface and not have to turn your head too much, because what happens then is it changes the angle of the image that you're working on the surface on this canvas. You want to try to keep your head as still as possible with just moving your eyes over really. So what happens is a lot of times you're moving your head up and down, and it's distorting the image. So again, there's a lot of other materials that we can use to make this contrast stronger, faster. But I like this approach because we can keep building on it and make it soft. It gives it like a real ethereal kind of look to me, I think. And sometimes I like them as just a sketch. I don't even want to finish them sometimes because they look so ambient.
Smoky.
Smoky, you got it. It's like I like my tequila smoky. Do you guys remember The Mask? Did you ever watch The Mask here?
Is that the Jim Carrey one?
Yeah. He's always like smoking.
Yes,
Yeah.
I do.
I love that movie.
It's such a good movie. They tried to remake it with something not great.
Yeah, there was like a part 2 or something like that, wasn't there?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that.
You can see, again, I started to get caught up in the little details of how the inner workings of the socket go, but then I have to like smack my hand and say, stop doing that. Because we're just still focusing on just the primary shapes, just those basic shapes. I always have to tell myself that.
So are you always jumping around pieces?
Am I jumping around in places?
Yeah, do you always do that with your pieces?
Yeah, I find myself doing that, and I've been trying to become a little bit more disciplined about it by getting the overall piece done. But I think for me, what happens is my eye works pretty well whenever I start seeing the relations of other areas of it. So I'll work on a little bit more of the detail here and there because I'm using it as an anchor. Like this part of this eye socket here, for example. Like I'll use this and I'll stay here for a second because what I'm doing is I'm using this as the anchor point to where the top of my nasal cavity is and where this curve on the jaw starts to kind of turn up, and how it's going to relate to the pinpoint, that anchor point of the curvature of that jaw. Because this curvature is like so subtle. It's so subtle, and it really makes and breaks that angle that we're trying to work at. And right now it's not really working for me because this portion here isn't where it's supposed to be. So I can already tell that by just this area because I'm looking at this triangle that's in it. The other part about rendering images like this with brushes and charcoal is that it allows you to be forgiving of yourself. You know, we're like I said before, doing tattoos, it's so minute, the little mistakes just show through like a magnifying glass, you know what I mean? So like you have to be on a much different kind of frame of mind at that point. And with this, it allows us to kind of be in the moment, which eventually will translate over to your tattooing.
Thank God.
I know, right?
Do you think that's why it's good to use different mediums so that you can learn different things when it comes to tattooing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think it's super important for us to like break away from the tattooing mode as much as possible. You know what I mean? That's why I've always stressed with everybody, like, you want to become better at drawing, sketch. You want to become better at drawing for tattoos, go outside and draw some trees. Go outside and draw some rocks. Go outside and draw some, anything you see, cats, people, anything. It just allows you to kind of break into that mode of thought where you go from the literal to the abstract. Left brain versus right brain kind of thinking.
Interesting.
How are you guys doing?
Good. Do you want us to show ours again?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, I'm showing.
Let's see what you got. Yes, that's good. I think I would move the jaw down a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think I would look at the angles, the bottom angles of your eye sockets as far as the widths of them. The left eye is looking great, and I think I would just mess with that bottom part of the jaw a little bit more. So take your big brush and just knock it all down. Knock it all down before you erase anything. Just knock it all down. Yeah, like over the whole jaw area. How about you?
Yes, sir.
Let's check it out. Yeah, there you go. It's getting better. Yes, you're building it up. That's awesome. You're getting the shapes down. I think what I'm seeing already though is that the jaw looks like it's a little long for the rest of the skull so far. Yep. So I would kind of render that skull out a little bit. Just like so. At this point, knock it down and then start using your gum eraser to get some of that darkness away from that bottom where you have the jaw now.
Okay, sir.
Hey, Arturo, how's it going, man?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Glad you could join us.
Hey, it's Arturo.
Yeah, I was gonna say I joined Kirsten's class on Thursday. I was meant to join today, but I just got home, so I hope it's not too late.
No, not at all, man. Just jump on in there.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. Do you have some of the materials that we were talking about?
Oh yeah, man! I was gonna say I draw with charcoal all the time, so I already got all my brushes, all my pencils, everything.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. So
We got a vet.
with charcoals, what kind of medium do you like to use as far as the paper?
Man, honestly, here, I can actually pull it up right in front of the camera. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I actually, so man, I draw a lot with charcoal. I use this Strathmore Bristol board.
Yep.
It's a 300 series. Man, I love it. The paper's like super thick. It just takes in all the graphite and all the charcoal really well.
Right on. Yeah, you're not like kind of tearing the paper up as you go, right? It's kind of staying solid on you.
Yeah, definitely. It gives me that little bit of like room to work with. It doesn't tear easy.
Very cool. So have you tried using the charcoal with brushes and stuff like that and charcoal powder?
I actually haven't. I use like the charcoal sticks and everything, but for the majority, I just what I do is I just kind of use like the method where you just kind of sharpen the pencils like this, kind of.
Yeah.
And then that's really the only method I use, that and just the graphite sticks.
Right.
But I haven't used the brushes yet.
Yeah. Do you have any compressed charcoal powder or anything, or any charcoal powder at all?
Man, not kind of like on hand. What I do have is just like what I'll do is I'll get some tracing paper, and then when I'm sharpening the pencils like that, the residue will fall on the paper, and I do have some of that.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Actually, I was gonna say, if you want to, you can just kind of, shave some of your charcoal pencil off onto a little plate or onto a piece of paper, and you can just collect the powder and then use that for sure. Just dip your brush into it.
All right, cool. Yeah, I do have some of those. Let me go grab them real quick.
Okay, cool, man. Another thing that we can do too, guys, is on the image that I sent to the RIT, if you look at the left side, I'll pull this phone down real quick. On the image, if you look at the left side of the skull, you can see the shapes, the real simple rectangle here, that off kind of, what, a triangle, rectangle kind of shape. You can see the size of it and where it would kind of end at the bottom of the teeth here and the bottom of this jaw. So you can see like a cutoff point here. So these are the kind of things that you want to start paying attention to, is like, where does this shape kind of graduate and end into a subtle kind of shape? And then also over here on the right, you can also see somewhat of a like ovalish kind of triangle here too. And it also provides these anchor points for the angles on this jawbone. Most importantly, though, more than anything else, is to just remember to just stay loose during this process. Don't get too stressed out about it. Stay as loose as you can. Layering it is okay. Knocking it all back down, if you're like not feeling where everything's going as far as the proportions, just brush over the whole thing. That collection of that charcoal over the whole face of that medium is going to be great for the overall image, the end product. I'll literally knock mine down a few times throughout the process. More than a few times, hundreds of times. This is also getting us comfortable with these paintbrushes. So when we go to paint, it doesn't feel so foreign to us. Like, I don't know if you guys can remember when you first started tattooing, how foreign that vibration felt in your hand. And then trying to create a line with it. It was always foreign, but you just become more acclimated with it the more you use it.
So I fixed the jaw and it looks much better. Thank you.
Working out for you now?
What?
Does it feel like it's more in proportions with itself?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Perfect. Good. Getting it.
Can you show it one more time? I missed it.
Oh,
Yeah, definitely. Awesome.
Mhm.
thanks, Lauren.
So,
You're welcome.
so Kira, one of the other things that you want to do too is pay attention to this area here in the front of the face. This area right here.
Okay.
You want to see like where the triangle for the nasal cavity fits into relationship to this anchor point for the jaw, for the cheekbone. How far away is it? And then how far away is this corner point of the eye socket too? And then you see this angle that it creates?
Oh. It blew my mind.
Yeah, that's all we're looking for. All we're looking for is all those little nuances, those little angles, those little shapes. It's all little oblong shapes, but the basic forms are squares, triangles, and circles. And they kind of like mutate from there.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What would you do for the top of the head since it's such a light value?
So the background needs to be very soft. So from the eye sockets up, I would almost just brush in that real loose charcoal over the whole area, all the way up to past where you think the head's supposed to be first. And then I would go in with
brush.
just the brush and the brush and a little bit of charcoal. Yeah. So just dip your big brush in the charcoal, dust it off a little bit, like just tap it, and then just start brushing the whole surface. And then you'll take your gum eraser and you'll pay attention to the shapes of the highlights and just start chiseling some of those highlights out. So I'll show you an example real quick. Let's see.
Really put some pressure on that brush, buddy.
Yeah. No half stepping.
And poor brush.
You got to put the epping in the stepping. You know what I mean? All right. So see, I'm just knocking the whole thing down. Like I'm not being polite with it at all. Like I'm just going in and really showing the skull that I'm here to play around. So you see, like I hope you can kind of see how soft everything is. Okay. I'm gonna go through and like my eye gravitates towards highlights and as them as anchor points. So I'm literally gonna go in and just start taking some of those highlights out. Just little bits at a time. And again, I'm still paying attention to the overall just simple shape of it. And my eye gravitated right toward the triangle right away. And it doesn't even matter if it's the right curve or anything right away. Doesn't matter. All I'm doing is getting the placement of the relationship of that highlight in comparison to the rest of the brow, in comparison to the rest of the bridge of the nose, and the overall highlight that's going to be on the teeth area here too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Cool. If you guys have any questions, just let me know because I tend to kind of ramble on some things sometimes. So get mush mouth about it. So then once I have some of those anchor points for myself, like I have a good milestone as far as like where things are going to go, I will start paying attention to this highlight in comparison to the edge of the head. How far away is that? What's this back angle? How does it work? Like, does it slope down backwards? Does it go up? So I'll literally just kind of pay attention to these simple shapes here. And if you can see what I'm paying attention to is, there's a highlight that we just put in. And I'm gonna pay attention to that rectangle right above it. And I'm literally just using my brush almost to the same shape that I see. So I'll just brush up. Yeah, I'm not being gentle with it at all. Like, I don't know if you guys can hear me scrubbing away at the paper, but I don't play around with it. I just said put the ep in and step, and that's pretty fucking funny. I said that out loud. I said it out loud. I was like, oh my God.
I was like me with banana back, man. I was like, once I said it once, I was like, I like throwing it off after that.
Yeah, banana back is good though. That's definitely the tattoo artist life, isn't it?
Yeah, you know, but I mean, I kind of like lay on my clients at some point sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, just, like, put all my body weight on them. Like, I'm just gonna hang out here for a second.
Yeah. Just chill, dude. It's okay.
I have one time, because my studio is so small width-wise, so if I'm doing somebody's like leg or something, I'll like push my back up against the wall and kind of like sit against it in like a super comfortable position. But it's just you gotta do what you gotta do.
Sometimes you gotta get in there.
Should we be putting in our absolute blacks at this point?
Once you feel confident in the proportions, and you can start laying some of those darkers down. But until that point, I wouldn't lay any of the darks down at all. I would just keep building up the simple shapes, just making it kind of start appearing from that murky water into a clearer water.
When would you switch to the charcoal pencils rather than the powder?
Once you have your shapes, and once you have your values down, all your tones in the right place, or your values down in the right place, then you're going to want to, then that's when you start using your pencils, because that's the only time that we use our small round brushes and paintings is when we're ready to start building up those focal points. And that's going to create the same effect with your, with our skull here.
Man, I love those small rounds.
You love those small rounds.
Yep, I do.
I keep telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. Flat brushes.
I haven't been. So
Good.
they've been staring at me in sadness.
Remember me?
That's how I felt when I got that battery pack and my power supply was just sitting there like playing the smallest violin.
Oh my gosh. You have to, like,
sorry.
You had to give him a hug and stuff like that. Like, it's okay. It's okay.
I know. When I had to use it yesterday, my battery pack died on me, so I used it yesterday, and it was like, it's all good. It felt
Hello,
good. I
beautiful.
know it did.
How have you been? Where have you been?
Saw me take out the RCA cord. It was just
like, that's pretty good. So you can see, like, on mine, I had the jaw bone was way too short. I had it way up here, and it dwarfed everything. It like made it just compact. So I just went through with my gummy eraser and started just taking out some of the quick gestural kind of shape out of it. And it's still not correct, but I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna keep building it up. Like I said, this process takes a little bit longer, but I like the overall feel of it. And I like the fact that it just keeps us loose.
I was just actually gonna ask that, like, where did you learn this technique, like from painting? Because I draw with charcoal pencils all the time, but it's not this fun and like this loose. It's actually just a lot more tight, almost like similar to like tattooing.
That's exactly what we were saying. Yeah, man, I appreciate you saying that, because that's exactly what I was trying to get out of it, was for us to just learn to have fun with it. And yes, I did pick it up from painting, especially doing like underpaintings. You know what I mean? And there's another way we can use like these soft pastel brushes, but that is also like a little bit more direct. And I really like just using the brushes because of the exact fact it's just fun. It's fun. It creates an overall softer feel. But yeah, I picked it up from painting, and I was saying earlier that with tattooing, us as tattoo artists, that is exactly what we always go towards, is like that direct contrast of black, that direct sharp line of direct, like, you know what I mean? So this kind of is helping us not be so worried about that finite feel right away. Like what we're doing is just focusing more on the proportions, the overall silhouette of the entire shape, how it all relates to each other. All these tiny little shapes that will eventually help us out in our tattooing for sure. So I'm glad to hear you say that, man. Thanks, dude.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just really big on like black and gray. Like I love like Carlos Torres and like Josh Duffy and all them, and like Matt Jordan. And that's what Carlos Torres says a lot too. Like that's one of his biggest goals. Like I watched an interview with him and he says like it's just to stay loose while he's doing like the tattooing thing. Yep. I was like, dang. Just to hear him say that, like that's just one of his biggest goals, to stay loose after like 25 years. I was like, dang, like I was like, it must not be an easy thing to do.
No, man, yeah. It's important to keep the brain flowing. It's important to keep it active with art, but try to pick up different mediums, and eventually it's going to kind of click together just because you're in practice of it, you know? Mm-hmm. That's why we've been talking a lot lately. I've been hearing a lot lately about everybody wanting to do more analog drawing and stuff like that too. And I can completely agree. Like I can't tell you how many times I've done a drawing on paper and I go to like pinch and zoom it. I'm like, oh shit, it's a piece of paper.
I did that last night.
Yeah. You know, and it's good to kind of break away out of that mold for a little while, man. Like, get back in it. There's some spirit in it. You know what I mean?
I think it helps you figure out how to make decisions as well, because with Procreate you can just backpedal as many times as you want. Yeah. And then when it comes to this kind of stuff, you have to like make a decision and make sure that decision is towards a goal rather than just fumbling around, you know?
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, layers, right? Layers are like the most beneficial thing, but at the same time, it can be a crutch. And plus, I like I said, we're going with the skull versus the portrait because like you have to understand these basic shapes, but I just generally love doing skulls. Like I could, if somebody was to tell me you're gonna do nothing but black and gray skull tattoos for the rest of your life, I'd be like, okay, I'm okay with that. No
Yeah, I
problems.
dig skulls too. Skulls are fun.
They are. Especially when they're Darth Maul skulls, right?
Shut up.
Here came through and hung out at my shop with me not that long ago, and she started a Darth Maul skull on me. It's fun, a lot of fun.
Can't believe that was your first Star Wars piece. What a slack.
That's my first. Yeah, I know. Tell me about it. I have so much to catch up on, man. Yeah. And then I don't even know what TikTok is.
I don't either, buddy. So you're fine.
I don't even know what TikTok is anymore. What the hell is going on these days?
I remember during the drunk critique when Joe Capobianco was like, I even made a TikTok to try and stay with the trends. And I was like,
yeah,
damn, Joe.
Yep. Yep.
It's crazy what we have to do to stay relevant.
If you want to.
Right.
If you want to.
If you want to.
You're right.
If that's the road that you decide to go down, then more power to you. But personally, I'm just like, okay, I don't want any social media on my phone or anything at all.
Yeah.
Except for the Reinventing the Tattoo app. That's a whole nother story.
And puppies.
And puppies. Yeah, you got it. Puppies for sure. I love dogs. I love dogs. I love them, man. They're so awesome. You guys into animals? Are you guys into animals at all?
I would say, man, I love animals. I grew up, my mom had like birds, she had cats, she had dogs, we had turtles, we had like anything you could like think of. We had chickens, awesome. We had ducks.
Where'd you grow up around, if you don't mind me asking?
I grew up in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and there's just some really like country places out here. And I kind of grew up like almost like half country, half urban.
Okay, cool. Got the best of both worlds, huh?
Yeah, in a way, yeah. Yeah, my dad owns like a ranch with horses and lambs.
That's fun, man. Now, did that come along with the brutal truths of the farmland too, or?
Did you say what?
Did that come along with the brutal truths of like living on a farm, like, animals dying on you guys or having to be put down or anything like that?
Oh yeah, man, all the time. Like that just kind of became like a natural thing to us. Like, man, yeah, they would like, man, it was pretty messed up. Like I'm Hispanic, so like we eat like soups or they're called like stews. They call them caldos. And, man, like one day we'd just be eating like caldo, and then like my grandpa would make a joke like that was Rosie from the backyard, and we'd be like, oh shit.
Oh man, that's incredible.
Yeah, but it was pretty natural. My dad, he has a family of horses, and that's like I think that's like the third generation of them. Like the dads and the grandpas already died and all that.
Wow,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick, I want to interrupt. I want to interrupt something real fast. I want to show you guys something that I forgot to mention on the reference. So we have the dark tones, we have some medium tones, right? And then we have our lightest areas. The one thing I will point out too is whenever we're starting to deal with the proportions and we're having issues with them, one of the things to pay attention to are some of the shapes of the midtones as well. And like how they angle across the surface. Like right now, what I'm gone and done is I've paid attention to this part of the jaw because I was having an issue with it. And once I saw how this mid-tone kind of cuts across into this point at the bottom of the jaw, I could anchor this point a little bit more soundly then.
Mm.
And you can see it in your ear as well. And that relationship, that top part of the cavity of the eye. So it's almost like a straight line, just straight down this area. Straight rectangle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and then I'm going to put that angle in there that I see.
Okay, got it.
But how about me? As far as I mean, I never had to be around animals in that capacity. I've seen a couple, like I've been around a couple animals that have passed and stuff like that. And that was always sad, but you know, there's a relationship between that whole, there's like a symbiote kind of relationship that a lot of us forget about whenever you're not around that kind of stuff, man. And I think it's actually kind of valuable that you grew up that way, you know?
Yeah, man, because like like the other day we had to bury our dog, and she was a Chihuahua. She turned like 14, just about there. Like she was around there.
Oh wow.
And like we all kind of got together, but it was weird. Like I don't know, like we just we understand that really well in our family. Like when like animals pass or anything like that, we're just like, oh, it's just like it's a natural process of life. Like so we don't really get like sad or anything like that about it. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the Chihuahua's name?
Her name was Muñeca, and in Spanish that means doll.
Okay.
Yeah, but we would just call her Moo because she was filled with black and white spots, so we would just call her Moo, like as in a little cow. Like.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah. What about you? Do you have any dogs?
Yeah, man, I had a couple dogs. I've had a few dogs in my life. They're awesome. I love them. I've had a Rottweiler before. She was the best. She was the best dog ever. I named her Zool, like from Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Yeah, she was the best dog ever, man. And then I was recently able to hang out with a girl that had a dog that was like half Chihuahua, half Dachshund or something like that. So she was this hairy little cutie, man. She was great. Her name was Kitty. She named her dog Kitty, so I thought that was pretty fun.
That's cool.
So how you guys doing so far? You guys want to show us what's going on?
Yeah, I will. I'm catching up. I got in here a little bit late, so I'm catching up. Pretty much just finishing in like the big blocks of everything.
Okay.
Can you see it? Pretty good.
Yeah, let me check out one at a time here. Let's see who's up first. Let's see. Akshay. Yeah, that looks great, man. Akshay, that looks good. You're starting to build up that volume. Yep. Starting to build up the volume. That's great. And I can see that the proportions are coming together a little bit nicer. That's awesome. Yeah, I would definitely start going through and start erasing, getting some of your highlights out of it at this point for sure. That'll give you a better relationship with that darker contrast that you want to start putting in the background. But you're getting pretty close to starting to put some of your details in with your pencil and stuff too. But I think at this point, I would start focusing on some of the highlights on the top edge of the nasal cavity.
Okay, sir.
And then some of the relationship between the sockets and that shading. Here, I'll show you in the picture. Some of the relationships in the size, this angle right here in the brow, that middle part of the brow, and where the top of the sockets meet it. You see that? How yours are off, just slightly off right there. You could say that. Like, I think I would bring this part of the socket up more towards this inner V.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
Yeah, and then the same thing with this the left socket too, or the skull's right socket, but our left side. And then you can see how much darker this area is versus this side over here. So I would take a little bit of this out here. Yep, it looks great though, man. It's looking killer. You're doing great. And on tracing paper, it's awesome. Good job, dude.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Arturo. Okay,
so pretty good.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, it looks like you got a lot of the structure down so far. I think one of the things that I would work on is the right side of the skull's like a cheekbone. I'll show you here. You can see how there's a little bit more of an angle to it. Yours is like a little bit more of a slope, and I think this right side of the eye cavity comes up in a slight curve, a little bit more than yours is going up a little straighter than it should.
Got you.
And then at this point, what I would do is start like taking the real big brush that you haven't dipped into any of your charcoal yet. And I would start just knocking the whole thing down, like brush over the whole thing real slightly and real soft. Because you want some of that charcoal to catch along the surface of where the skull's going to be.
Okay, got you.
Cool. Here, where you at, girl? Yeah, awesome. Starting to come together. The proportions are pretty close. You got it. I think I would, yeah, start filling in some of those, the cavities of the eye just a little bit more. I'm getting lost in there for some reason. Let's see here. Hold it up for one more second. It's looking pretty close, man. You got a good job there. Yeah, it's looking pretty close. I think I would add some more darks to the background on the right side of the skull and start playing around with those chunkier shapes. And I think you might start seeing some more stuff pop out at you after you do that.
Yeah, I pulled out the pencils because so I like would scumble on the paper, and then I would take the paintbrush and kind of just smush it around to kind of give it a little more effect. So I don't know if you can see in the eye socket.
Yeah.
That's why I started doing that.
Okay, cool.
So once I do that for like the entire thing, it'll start to like actually take shape, you know.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's part of the process that you have going on right now for blending that. Cool. That's awesome. That's some gun-ho initiative right there.
This is my first time working with charcoal, and I understand what you were talking about when it comes to the overall like value selections of it and then building it up. Because once you start getting a real general shape of it, and then you start working like with a paintbrush, it like changes the whole game.
Yes.
Like once you add this paintbrush down here, it makes everything so soft and like makes a form real nicely, and you know, it really takes shape on the paper. It looks really great.
Right. It starts giving it that depth.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The focal points, for sure.
You can learn a lot with your basic fundamentals in just charcoal.
Yep. I'll show you guys where I'm at so far. So you can kind of see how I started erasing some. I had the jaw, that corner of the jaw way too high. So I started erasing a little bit more of it, and I've knocked it down a few more times, and I started putting in some quick little gestures for where I'm going to start adding my darks to it, because there's a little bit of a curve here on the bottom part of this jaw. I brought my teeth down just a little bit more, and I think when I look at it, this space looks pretty okay, and I like the angle that this is creating off of my drawing, off of my reference source. So I can start to see a lot of wrapping light over the surface of it already. Some of the proportions are a little off still, so I'm going to mess with this eye up here as well. I'm going to go in and start chiseling out a little bit more of an edge here with my brush still, but it's coming along. Your guys' drawings look great. How are you guys feeling with time and everything like that? Everybody okay on time?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, what time is it where you're at?
Sir, it's like 12 in the night, sir.
Wow, thank you for joining us, man. That's awesome.
No
Right.
problem, sir.
That's awesome. Do you guys work on Sundays normally? Does everybody have Sundays off usually? How does it work for everybody?
Are you referring to like tattooing wise, or?
Yeah, tattooing.
Usually, I was gonna say I'll work like about like 4 days out the week, just about, and then the rest of the time, I'll sacrifice like tattooing and making money to like learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say I go about like 4 days a week.
Trust me, that's not a sacrifice. You're just paying your dues.
Oh, shit. Well, man, I don't know. I guess that's just probably, yeah, you're right. Probably good. I guess just the way I was looking at it.
All perspective. You're okay.
We should try to take Sundays off, at least Sunday. End up working quite a bit lately. It's okay. Getting ready for a lot of travels and stuff like that, so pretty excited about that. Like what I'm saying, doing that Belgium thing is gonna be awesome. Pretty excited. Kira's joining us.
Yeah, Belgium's gonna be fun.
My first time overseas.
I know, me too. We both don't speak French though, Ricardo.
Yeah, we should start thinking about it. Trying to learn Spanish right now.
Trying to learn Spanish?
Yeah, trying to learn some Spanish.
I was gonna say, let me know if you have any questions. I can help you.
All right, man. I might message you on the RT forum.
Oh yeah, message me. I'll tell you. I'll help you out.
Okay.
So where y'all going? You said y'all don't know like French. Where exactly are y'all going?
Going to Belgium.
Belgium?
Yep, Brussels. It's gonna be pretty rocking, man. There's a tattoo convention we're all going out there for, and it's gonna be pretty exciting. We're going out there with most of the RAT crew too, so it's gonna be great.
Oh, that's badass.
Yeah, it'll be here before you know it.
Tell me about it. It's just flying by already.
Question: what happens if I make my value too strong? Do I just use the gummy eraser?
You can use a gummy eraser or knock it back down. Yep.
Okay.
Let me show me what you're working with though, like in what area, and how is it too strong?
I just made that eye socket just a little too.
Yeah, you want it softer? Yeah, I would definitely take your gummy eraser and just kind of scumble over it. Absolutely. You could even blend it in with your finger a little bit if you'd like to too.
I mean, I just don't want it to upset the other values that are surrounding around it.
Yes. No, I agree with you because that's what gives it that that volume. If you make it too dark, it's definitely going to draw your eye to that area more than it should, right? So yeah, I agree with you. Okay. Yeah. Just kind of like take your gummy eraser and just kind of pat it down.
I'll definitely have to post mine later.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say like I'm gonna show you guys some stuff on some tightening here real quick, and might be calling it a day pretty soon and see how you guys feel about maybe posting some things that you've done a little bit later on, messaging them. I think it'd be fun to post them on the forum, and kind of keep track of where we're at with your time on your project. And then maybe we can do this again at another time.
Yeah, definitely.
I would love to do this charcoal
Okay.
class like once a month.
That'd be awesome. So real quick, like I said earlier before, like what I try to do is whenever I'm painting or using this charcoal, I always try to hold my brushes back at the end of the handle. It gives you that extension about as far as being able to see the piece in entirety. So I've done the same thing with my charcoal sticks. This little pencil holder will help out once you get down to that little nub of your pencil. That's pretty much what they're made for, I think. I don't know, but I like to use it for the same purpose, like holding it way back here. And what it does is it's just barely catching on the surface. So that way I'm not making those clean, crisp little lines. All we're doing is letting it subtly catch. The same way light would hit a shape. It doesn't make a sharp edge. It just makes the impression of a line. It's not a line though. It's just a more, it's just a darker value of a shape. That's it. So I'll show you guys real quick. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go through and start getting some of the details, because in my subject matter, I can see that some of the focal points are gonna be the nasal cavity, like where the light hits it the most. That's pretty much where I want the eye to be drawn almost even, is that nasal cavity. So I'm just gonna barely even just hit the edges. And it doesn't matter if it's perfect. Get out of the mode of the tattooing where it has to be very precise. I'm just basically chiseling that in there. So all I'm doing is just making little gestural marks. And I'm not putting a whole lot of pressure on it either. And when I get up on it, you guys can see how much tighter it is. And then the other thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to go in. Let's see if I can do this while I hold the camera real quick. I'm just gonna make a point on my gummy eraser. And I'm literally gonna do the same thing that I just did with the pencil. And just brush that eraser in there. You can see how much more intensity it adds to the picture and the surrounding area. Now, all that's done for us, it's that simple to create the focal point. And because of all that knocking down that we've done, it allows that medium tone, or that really soft tone, to lend even more to our highlights and the focal point in the process. And then, you know, of course, you can always rewatch these videos and stuff like that and kind of start back from the beginning if you want to. It's always good for me to do that whenever I'm like on Monday night classes, especially. And kind of go over some of the highlighted topics that we might have missed because we were trying to keep up with the drawing portion of it. So you guys go. So you can already see how much more attention it brings right to that area. That's it. And then we'll do the same thing for the teeth. You just go in and find your anchor points as far as the way they relate to the middle of the nose, the outside portions of the nasal cavity. We'll just go straight down from there and find that third tooth to the right. That's it. And then if you want to, you can go in with your pencil. You can already see the dots starting to be created. Cool. Guys, How do you feel about calling it a day?
I call it a success.
All right, come on, man. Well, thank you guys very much for joining. I appreciate you keeping up with my rambles. You know, the more I do this, hopefully the more legible I'll get as far as like the explanation of things. So thank you for participating today. It was fun.
Man, thank you for taking the time. I feel like I learned a lot. I feel like I joined late, super late, and I still learned a lot. So thank you.
Good. That's awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that. So, all right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks, everybody.
Great.
Appreciate it. See y'all later.